Good afternoon to you all, Excellencies, dear colleagues of the diplomatic community here in Thailand. The session today could be traced back to a week ago when we had this reception, which you kindly came to the Foreign Ministry. And that was the reception. But during the course of reception, a question was thrown to you whether you will be interested in the question of a roadmap for Thailand. And I saw several hands raised. So that justifies such an organization of today's session. And luckily, though, that yesterday at the cabinet meeting between the cabinet members and the members of NCPO, that was another briefing, on the roadmap, sort of a reiteration of what's going to be happening from today onwards. And that briefing to the members of the cabinet and the NCPO was done by our Deputy Prime Minister, who was in fact the only guru of the roadmap for Thailand. So we're going to be hearing today all accounts of Thai roadmap towards the day when we would have the election. May I, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, simply just shift the focus to our Deputy Prime Minister for him to start off with the session. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Minister of Foreign Affairs, His Excellency Mr. Chowdhury, President of the Inter-Parliamentary Union or the IPU, Excellencies, members of diplomatic corps, ladies and gentlemen. Please allow me to explain to you in brief about the roadmap or the timetable of the political roadmap of Thailand, especially for the next 20 months. Don't be frightened when I say 20 months. This can be shortened, as I will tell you later. In order to save the time, I would like to ask for your permission to use the PowerPoint. And if you need a copy of this, you can ask for it later. As you know, earlier this month, on September 6, the National Reform Council, or the NRC, disapproved the constitutional draft. They voted yes on the draft 105. They voted no, which means disapprove 135, and abstained 7. So this means that the draft constitution, after spending about 11 months for drafting, failed in the National Reform Council. It also means that the new drafting committee will be set up probably within this week or next week to start drafting the new one, which will take about 6 months for drafting. This time or this period, 6 months, has been imposed in the interim constitution. It can be shorter, but it cannot be extended. And after finishing the draft of the constitution, the draft will go to the referendum, national referendum, which means that it needs more 4 months after that. And this is the job of the Election Commission, which I will tell you in detail later. So now we should turn back to the main roadmap. When I say main roadmap, it is the big roadmap. As the chairman of the NCP or the National Council for Public and Order told us about 1 year ago, and he also called it the big roadmap, which is divided into 3 phases or 3 steps. Phase 1 started from May 22nd last year to July 22nd last year. During that 2-month period, we should call it the NCPO government. Thailand at that time was under the NCPO ruling. NCPO is the abbreviation of the National Council for Public and Order. In Thai we call it the KSOCH. During that period, we had no constitution. During that period, we had no parliament, no assembly. The NCPO could issue any declaration or any order having the same effect as the law of the land. But in fact, the NCPO never used or never declared any order. As the judicial order. They were just the executive or the legislative orders only, which means that those orders try to correct or amend any existing law or otherwise to serve for the executive purpose, not to replace the judicial decision, not to punish anybody. This confirmed that the NCPO still uphold the principle of the rule of law as the main principle of the country. So that period lasts for 2 months. What happened on July 22nd last year? That was the day when we had the new interim constitution, which still enforced up to now. The interim constitution was promulgated on July 22nd, 2015. So which means that the NCPO stops its ruling, its role as the government. Because after that, the National Legislative Assembly or the NLA was set up with 220 members, all are appointed. And after that, the Prime Minister was appointed. That was General Prayut Chan-o-cha as the Prime Minister. He then set up the new cabinet. So this period should be called the constitutional government as it is now. This period will be extended to the general election day which is scheduled to take place in 2017. Why 2017? I will tell you later. So we are now on the second phase of the main roadmap. And the next phase of phase 3 start from the general election day to the future. That period should be called the representative government or the elected government, which will take place in 2017, as I told you. What will be done in each phase of the big roadmap? In phase 1, the Prime Minister used this terminology to explain the situation. Act now, act immediately in order to solve the old problems of the country. Before May 22nd, 2015, we had a lot of problems. We had a lot of conflicts. We had many things to do, but could not be done. We have committed many things with other countries, but we could not fulfill those obligations. We signed a lot of treaties with the international organizations or with other countries, but we could not fulfill the obligations. We could not implement any treaties we signed. So in phase 1, the government said, act everything now, act everything immediately without waiting. Don't waste your time, because we have to solve the old problems. For example, we committed many things with China. We committed many things with Japan. So this is the right time for Thailand to observe those obligations. We signed a lot of treaties, but we could not pass any implementation laws to accommodate those treaties. Now the government will cooperate with the National Legislative Assembly, or the NLA, as the parliament to pass those laws. For example, the law on the protection of the ivory, conservation of the ivory, or the wild animals, and many other laws. In phase 2, the Prime Minister used this term to explain the situation in phase 2. Act further, or act next, in order to pave the way for the bright future. In this phase, we need to pass a lot of laws. We need many laws in order to pave the way for the bright future of Thailand in social, political, and economic areas. And in the last phase of phase 3, the Prime Minister used the term act furthermore for sustainable development. According to this phase, we may have to use the principle or the philosophy of sufficiency economy as described by His Majesty the King. Or we need to pass many laws we need to have a lot of projects. For example, the train project, speed train projects, in order to develop the country, help the people, decrease any gap among the poor people, between the poor people and the rich. And that is phase 3. As I told you that we are now during the second phase. So I would like to call this phase as the small phase that need the small roadmap for the big or the main roadmap. It is the small roadmap within the main roadmap. What happened? First, the National Reform Council, or the NRC, was already dissolved on September 6 this year, earlier this month, after they disapproved the draft constitution. So they were dissolved. All 250 members are dissolved. Secondly, the Constitutional Drafting Committee, comprising of 36 members, was also dissolved on September 6 this year. Thirdly, therefore there will be no referendum on January 10 next year as scheduled, because we have nothing for the referendum right now, unless we can finish with the draft of the new constitution. Previously, we thought that on January 10, 2016, or next year, we will have the nationwide referendum. People will come out to vote. But since the draft constitution was failed in the vote of the National Reform Council 2 weeks ago, there will be no referendum in January. Fourthly, the NCPO, or the National Council for Public and Order, will appoint not more than 20 members of the new Constitutional Drafting Committee within 30 days. When I say within 30 days, the last day will be October 6. And the Prime Minister told the Cabinet yesterday, during the Cabinet meeting, that he will be ready to appoint the 21 members of the Constitutional Drafting Committee before he leaves for the UN meeting in New York. So that is next week. But I am not sure whether the names of those people will be announced publicly at that time. Because even though we have the names of the people to be members of the Constitutional Drafting Committee, we have to contact with them, ask for their permission, and get the answer from them. So it takes time. So maybe, possibly, the list of the names of the new Constitutional Drafting Committee can be released to the public just right after the Prime Minister returned from the UN meeting. This Constitutional Drafting Committee comprising of 21 persons, one as the chairman, and the rest of them will be the ordinary members of the committee, has to draft the new constitution and has to finish within 6 months or 180 days. And as I told you, this time cannot be extended, but it can be shortened. After that, the draft of the constitution will be put on the nationwide referendum within 4 months after that. So now we have two numbers, 6 and 4. The first 6 is the time for the preparation of the draft constitution. Number 4 is for the referendum. Fifthly, the Prime Minister, now the Prime Minister as the head of the government, not the NCPO, the Prime Minister will appoint not more than 200 members of the Country Reform Driving Council. The name of this council is quite strange. The abbreviation should be CRDC, Country Reform Driving Council. This council will replace the National Reform Council, which was dissolved before. The Prime Minister will appoint 200 members of this council within 30 days, which will be ended on October 6th. This council will propose the reform on various areas, socio-economic and political. They will propose the reform, educational reform, legal reform, economic reform, social reform, administrative reform, etc. What will be the functions of the government during the second phase of this small roadmap? We have the cabinet or the council of ministers as the center of power, headed by General Prayut Chan-o-cha and other members of the cabinet. Previously, according to the old constitutions of Thailand, the function of the cabinet, the only function of the cabinet is to administer the state affairs or the administration of the state affairs. But according to the interim constitution, which is in force now, the cabinet has 3 functions. First, the administration of the state affairs. Secondly, the reformation or reform the country. And finally, the reconciliation or the function or the duty to build unity among the people. So that's why I say the government has 3 functions. According to each function, for example, administration of the state affairs, the government or the cabinet will work through the following assistance. First, the NCPO, National Council for Public Order. Secondly, in order to administer the state affairs, the government will work through the public sector or the government officials and through the driving committees. This may not sound familiar to you. Now we have a lot of driving committees. The committee to drive economy, politics, social, finance, trade, for example. We call them the driving committees. Some committees are chaired by the Prime Minister. Some committees are chaired by the Deputy Prime Minister. The main task of this committee is to drive the country to the destination. And also with the assistance of the National Legislative Assembly or the NLA to pass some laws to help the government. The mechanism to administer the state affairs are as follows: policy implementation, law enforcement, and the development of the country on the basis of the sufficiency economy. Now, let's turn to the reformation or reform function. The government has to conduct the reform through the NCPO, through the public sector, through the private sector, through the National Legislative Assembly, through the strategic committee already set up by the government to work on the reform, and through the CRDC, which will be set up next week or in the few weeks ahead, by the following mechanisms: act now, act further, and act furthermore strategy, as I told you before. And the Prime Minister emphasized that in order to conduct any reform, we should avoid the conflict. As you can observe, whenever people propose the reform of anything, there will be the opposition or the conflict. And the government does not want to create any conflict right now. So anything that is acceptable among all people or the majority of the people will be done first. Anything still create conflict among the people will be done later. Now we turn to the function of the reconciliation, or to create unity among the people, or harmony among the people. This can be done through the public sector, people participation, the NCPO and the National Legislative Assembly, by means of the remedy to the people, by giving pardon or amnesty, granting amnesty to some people as necessary, by conducting development in some areas, by using the rule of law strictly, by granting fairness, equity, single standard to the people, and by means of peaceful coexistence. Now we come to the last page of the presentation, which is quite colorful. I just want to answer to your question that you may ask: when is the election, when is the general election expected to take place? When can we have the election in Thailand? Several months ago we expected the new general election should take place earlier next year. But at that time, the answer was given on the basis that there would be no referendum, and on the basis that the draft constitution could pass in the National Reform Council. But after that, we amend the constitution to pave the way for the national referendum. So it means that we need more time for the referendum. And unfortunately, the draft constitution, 285 articles, failed in the National Reform Council, which means that we have to start the draft. We have to restart drafting the new constitution. So we need more time. Earlier, you may read from the newspaper that the government announced 4 numbers, digital numbers, like the lottery number, 6464, good number. It has some meaning, 6464, 6 plus 4 plus 6 and plus 4. The result is 20 months. Our destination is 20 months ahead. What is our destination? The general election or the new government, not the new constitution, the new government, the new general election. Why 20? So long. I can give you the reason why 20 months. This is not too long. It is within the expected duration. And when I say 20 months, I do not rely on any astrological aspect or any unreasonable prediction, but on the legal and political basis with the reasonableness and possibility. This month is September 2015. 20 members of the Constitutional Drafting Committee will be appointed within this month. After that, the Constitutional Drafting Committee will work on the drafting of the new constitution. And the interim constitution give them 6 months to finish the draft. So they have to start from October 2015 to March 2016. 6 months. 6 months for the draft of the constitution. So the draft should be finished by March next year. Already 6 months. Can we make it shorter? Yes. Maybe about 5 months or 4 months. It depends on the draft committee. But when we say 6 months, it doesn't mean that they have to use 6 months or 180 days to work on the drafting. They may need about 4 months to draft the constitution, and plus 2 more months for hearing, because they have to hear We have to listen to the people, to the public, to the politicians, all sectors in the country. They have to get the comments from the people, and they have to respond to those comments too. That's why 6 months. But after appointing the members of the drafting committee, the government will try to communicate with those people and negotiate whether they can reduce from 6 months to about 5 months or maybe 4 months. But the longest time is 6 months. After that, you can see the blue column. From April 2016 to August 2016, 4 months. This is the time for referendum. Why 4 months? They have to print the draft of the constitution and distribute them to about 20 million households to read, understand, and comment. So the national referendum should take place within 4 months after the finish of the draft. Suppose the draft constitution can pass the national referendum. I say suppose it can pass. People are satisfied with the draft, they vote yes, the draft passed the national referendum. It will take about 30 days or 1 month for His Majesty the King to consider and sign the Constitution, and the Constitution will come into force. Why 30 days? Why not 3 days? Well, this is the Thai custom, the Thai practice, not European practice, not your country's practice. In Thailand, we have to rewrite the law, especially the Constitution, in the special paper. As you may see, the Democracy Monument on Ratchadamnern Avenue. This will be written by hand in 3 copies and presented to His Majesty the King for the royal signature. So it will take about 30 days to write the Constitution in the script we call the sacred or the holy script for the royal signature. Okay, 30 days. That is September 2016. And in the meantime, from September to October 2016, 2 months, we have to draft the organic laws. The organic laws are the laws to implement the Constitution, because the Constitution itself is not complete. So we need some necessary organic laws or the implementation law to implement the Constitution. For example, the election law, the political party law, the election commission law, 6 laws altogether must be drafted within 2 months. This afternoon I had the chance to meet with President of the Inter-Parliamentary Union, and he gave me a good suggestion that sometime we can draft the organic law side by side with the Constitution. And this is a good idea. It will save a lot of time. Anyway, we prepare 2 months for drafting the organic law. Should not be longer than that, but it can be shorter. Maybe 1 month, maybe 15 days. But now, let's give them 2 months for drafting 6 laws, 6 organic laws. And after that, those organic bills must be presented to the National Legislative Assembly, or the NLA, acting as the parliament. And the parliament can spend about 3 months to finish the consideration of the 6 organic laws. If the National Legislative Assembly or the Parliament cannot finish within 3 months, the law or the interim constitution say that let's assume that the Parliament approved all of them without any correction. So this means that the National Legislative Assembly must finish its job within 3 months. And after that, all laws, those 6 laws, will be presented again to the Constitutional Court to review the constitutional validity of those bills, whether they conform with the Constitution or not. And the Constitutional Court must finish this job within 1 month. So we have 2 months for the preparation of the draft of the organic law, plus 3 months in the National Legislative Assembly, is that correct? Plus 1 month in the Constitutional Court, so 6 months altogether. That's why I say 6 plus 4 plus 6, now plus 6. Now we have all necessary laws already for the election. But please give about 1 month or 30 days to His Majesty the King for the royal consideration before he gave the signature on those laws. Traditionally, about 30 days. Don't forget that we have 6 laws altogether. Those laws will go to the Privy Council and then to His Majesty the King. Okay, 1 month. When we publish those laws in the Royal Gazette, this means that the first day of the general election is approaching. Because we have to give 3 months for the political campaign, for people to set up the new political parties, for people to prepare for the election, for the politicians to prepare for the election, running in the election, campaigning, 3 months. So 1 month for the royal signature plus 3 months for the campaign will be 4 months, right? Now you have the answer why 6 plus 4 plus 6 plus 4. The total number is 20. That's why I say 20 months from now. Hopefully in June 2017, we will have the general election. And not longer than 1 month after that, we will have the new government, the new elected government. Again, Is the 20-month period too long? Yes, too long. Can it be shortened? Yes. By what means? By reducing the time of each step. For example, instead of 6 months for the preparation of the draft, should be about 4 months, 5 months. Instead of 2 months for the preparation of the organic laws, should be about 1 month or 1 month and a half. If this can be done, the total duration will be about 16, 17 months or maybe 18 months, shorter than 20 months. And finally, my presentation will not be complete if I don't give you what the Prime Minister emphasized in the cabinet meeting yesterday. After listening to this explanation, he said this is approvable, this is possible, but please try to reduce this period of time. That depends on the negotiation with the people concerned in the future. Some member of the cabinet asked me in the cabinet meeting whether it is possible to cut off any unnecessary job. Do you think it is possible? It is possible to reduce, but I don't think it is possible to cut something off. Somebody suggests, why don't we cut off the referendum, which will spend about 3,000 million baht. And it takes a long time, 4 months. My answer is, according to democratic practice, referendum is necessary. But it depends on the people. Because previously we never thought of the referendum before. But when people ask for it, we have to amend the constitution few months ago to put one clause in the constitution, that is the referendum clause. If people still need the referendum, then we have to go to the referendum. What else can be cut off? If the answer is no, then the answer is 20. And the Prime Minister also said that we have to give the assurance to foreign direct investor, FDI, that foreign direct investment will still be protected by the government to the full scale during this period, this 20-month period. It is within the responsibility of the government. So the government will extend comfortability, expediency, and full protection to any foreign investment to the full scale or to the full legal extent. And secondly, the Prime Minister emphasized that there will be no under-table payment for any investor to do with the government officials as it used to be before. Whoever paid even 1 baht of the under-table payment please secretly inform the Prime Minister. As a matter of fact, many people already informed the Prime Minister, and the result may not be released to the public, but the people concerned have already been convicted or punished. Thirdly, as you already know, we now have the new law last month that is the Licensing Facilitation Act, which is quite new to the public sector in Thailand. It is called the Licensing Facilitation Act, which means that every governmental unit, 20 ministries, 140 departments, 50 state enterprises, 40 public organizations must prepare the handbooks of the people. They have already done this job. In the handbook, it must describe how long it takes for the people to contact with the governmental unit in order to get the license or to get the permission. For example, if you want to set up the factory, if you want to build a house, if you want to ask for the permission from the government, the handbook must provide information to the public that how long it takes in order to get the permission. For example, 7 days. If this cannot be done within the specific days, for example, 7 days, people can sue the government officials or the governmental unit concerned. The handbook must also describe what documents are needed in order to get the permission from the government to do so and so. What kind of documents? And the official cannot ask for more documents. If you say 3 pieces, 5 pieces, you cannot ask for the 7th piece of the document. Otherwise, you will be persecuted. Everything will be, actually everything is in the Licensing Facilitation Act. So this will help businessmen, investor, people a lot. And this can get rid of the corruption. So this is the information that the government would like to convey to Your Excellencies. And for further details, I believe that the Minister of Foreign Affairs will explain to you. Sorry for taking your time.
I think that was a good time spent for all of us to be able to understand the heart of Thai politics of the moment, which is the roadmap. A roadmap is a roadmap. It has been cautiously designed, and now it's the time for cautiously executed. If you listen carefully to this, just like I did, you get to understand that all paces, all stages have been mapped out very carefully by people concerned, and with a time frame which is appropriate at the time it was designed. But then, only yesterday, there was a new instruction that came from the Prime Minister that we should try to shorten it, so that the whole process will be expedited. Well, let's see whether we can really shorten it. because then you have to negotiate with the drafting committee to solve it. 6 months to get it down to 4 or 5. It's up to how fast the committees would work on a task. Of course, one which we offer, one suggestion made by IPU representative was quite interesting to have a certain task taken up side by side or simultaneously with the drafting itself. So that certainly would shorten that 2 months long stage. And one key factor which interests me, of course I have to admit that yesterday at the briefing, the pace was much faster, and I have to try to grasp the whole gist and detail of the whole roadmap. But now I have the benefits of listening to it for a second time with a much slower pace by our Deputy Prime Minister. So one point which I personally think is certainly served as a key to the roadmap, and that is the how you put it. Is it National Reform Steering Council or is it country driving committee? I think we have to find out the exact terminology for future purposes. But this steering committee is very crucial because it's a key to the reform work. It will pick up where the National Reform Council left off last Sunday, not last Sunday, two Sundays ago. So this steering committee is very crucial, and now the time of forming this committee is certainly approaching, and the Prime Minister is trying to come up with just 200 names of the people. I was approached, in fact, a few hours ago by someone who are very much interested in being part of it. Of course, it's not possible, but at least that's a reflection of how much interest people are in the work of reforming the country. And if you follow the whole concept of reform, and you will see that perhaps the work of Thai reform council, or the part of the roadmap, is one of the few in the world really that there is such a efforts to reform the whole spectrum of work, not just only on a certain issue, but across the board. And that should interest perhaps you all to follow as to how much progress is made on this reform work, which at the end of the day, what is expected is the transparency, the efficiency of the things which are being undertaken at the moment. And that is the goal. We certainly like to brush up all the past practices which are not considered to be efficient, not transparent enough, not good enough, to be passed on to our next generation. Therefore, the reform is very crucial. So this is part of the whatever comments I'm making at the moment, but I know that you would join my observation that there are a number of things that probably are born in your minds, and I would like to turn that into questions. So please, by all means, show your interest in asking any questions you like. Our Deputy Prime Minister might give you an answer. If I could do it, I would certainly supplement that. Please, by all means. You're welcome to ask anything. Of course, roadmap first, other things will come later. Please. Okay, anything first and then roadmap comes later. Now, Susan, coming up with a question now.
Hi, good evening, Excellency. My name is Asli. I'm from Embassy of Malaysia. Yes, thank you, Excellency, for the very excellent briefing this afternoon. I just wondering if, because when you said this, if the new or the draft, the charter is supposed to be approved during the referendum. So if the draft is rejected during the referendum, what will happen? Is it the process of drafting will be start all over again, and the tentative schedule of the 20 months will be delayed or will be extended for another more few months? Thank you, Sir.
It looks like so to be, but I think that the Deputy will give you a better answer, please.
Well, actually, we don't have the answer yet. We dare not anticipate the result. But it is possible that in the near future, we may have to amend the Constitution again to respond to the situation as you just asked. For example, if the 21-member drafting committee finished its job and the draft cannot pass in the referendum, what should we do next? There is no answer in the Constitution because we don't think that it will fail again. But that's possible, right? So we have to prepare for the situation. Probably in the next couple of months we have to amend the Constitution to respond to that situation. Now some people suggest that in order to save the time, is it possible for the drafting committee not to start everything from A, B, C or from the beginning? Why don't you use the old constitutions? We have 19 constitutions already in the Thai history. The one that we are going to draft is the 20th one. So why we just don't pick up some constitution and make some amendment, make some correction? It will save a lot of time. Instead of 6 months, maybe about 1 month already. And if that is possible, I believe that the draft committee will also think and give the answer to the public. So, sorry, I cannot give you the specific answer right now because it depends on the situation in the future and we may have to amend the Constitution again. That is the answer.
Now you have heard it loud and clear. That is the prerogative of the drafting committee, whether they would try to make use of the past constitutions or they would start from scratch. Please.
Thank you very much, Deputy Prime Minister Michael Victor, Ambassador of Denmark. Now, since there is no answer in the case that the Constitution will be rejected, I'm sure that there will be a very, very high priority in the work to ensure, or to at least make best attempt to ensure an adoption and a yes from the referendum. Are there any lessons learned from the first process already that led to a rejection? Is there any lessons learned already identified that you can say something about what we've done different? The inclusion of the people, or the different voices, or even the content that was controversial, or something that you can already identify, say this will be different to ensure that the process will go on. Thank you very much.
Well, just yesterday the Prime Minister ordered in the cabinet meeting that a special committee should be formed as soon as possible. to see what happened on September 6. What are the main reasons why the National Reform Council reject the draft constitution? Because he doesn't want history to repeat itself again. And I can give you the answer after we know from that committee, that special committee. We call it investigation committee. Probably next month you have to come back again and I will give you the answer, Your Excellency. Well, this will be released to the public.
Do I see any hands raised?
สวัสดีครับผมเองขอถามผมว่าต้องพูดเป็นภาษาอังกฤษหรือเป็นภาษาไทย
Sorry, we can't hear you. Whatever language.
ขอโทษครับขอถามคนเองขอถามผมต้องพูดเป็นภาษาไทยหรือเป็นภาษาอังกฤษครับ English. Okay, so let's start in English. I'm from the Embassy of Russia. I'm an attaché, maybe one of the youngest diplomats at the Russian Embassy, and I have one question. Here they have, they could see the roadmap to the new constitution, but I have the question about the previous draft, which was rejected by the National Reform Council, because in fact, as you see from the votes, which were demonstrated today, about 105 persons agreed the draft which was presented, and 135 persons disagreed the previous draft, and 7 abstains. I have the question in this matter, what's wrong with the draft constitution? Of course, in fact, as you can see, not everybody was disagree with the draft constitution. There were more than 100 persons who had a thought that this constitution is okay, and this constitution reflects the core needs of the people of Thailand. And but still, more than 100 said that this constitution is not reflects the needs of the people of Thailand. What's wrong with the previous draft of the constitution? The question is.
I don't know what's wrong with it. I don't know what's wrong with those 135 people too. Anyway, we guess that those people, even maybe the public too, are not satisfied with some provisions. For example, some people are not satisfied with the provision which allows the non-MP to be the Prime Minister. According to the draft, the MP can elect one out of them to be the Prime Minister. But in case of emergency, in case of the unusual situation, they may choose the outsider, which is the non-MP, to become the Prime Minister if 2/3 of them voted for that outsider. Many people are not satisfied with this provision. They want the MP to be the Prime Minister only. I believe that in your countries, your constitution do not say anything about insider or outsider, but practically or traditionally or usually, members of the parliament are entitled to choose the Prime Minister, to elect the Prime Minister, and it it's quite usual for them to choose one MP, maybe the head of the political party with the majority, to be the Prime Minister, right? But that works because of the tradition or the practice, not the law. And we want the Thai political development to be like that. That's why the draft constitution says, okay, insider, you understand what I mean, insider. But in case of emergency, deadlock, we should open the way for the outsider if the majority or most of them agree to accept. Why close this door? Open the door, open the window. Some people say no. We must provide in the constitution, as we already did in the past constitution before May 22nd, that only the MP can become the Prime Minister. And that was already the deadlock for Thailand. Because before May 22nd last year, I'm sorry to review the name. We had Prime Minister named Kun Yingluck Shinawatra, right? But when she had some problem, she had to resign or quit the job. Now it's time to find another Prime Minister. But that's not possible. One group does not accept the people nominated by the majority in the parliament. So it's quite a deadlock. So the drafting committee think that if that event happened again in the future, what would be the exit? Because we closed the door and the window. Why open it? And many people do not like this idea. That's why they reject this constitution. Some of them, not all of them, not all 135. Second reason may be concerning with the senator. According to the draft, which already failed. In the first 4 years, on the transitional period, "77 senators are elected from 77 provinces, plus 123 senators will be appointed. So there will be 200 senators altogether, right? Some people do not like this idea. They want 200 senators from the election. No appointed senator. And I believe that some of them voted no, disapprove the constitution on this reason, on this basis. And with some other reasons, a lot of reasons. Many people guess that some members of the National Reform Council disapprove the draft because they want to extend the term of the government. I don't know whether this is true or not, but the government declare all the time that, especially the Prime Minister declare all the time that he doesn't want to stay longer. And I believe that he speaks the truth. Because he has a lot of reason to step down, and he has no reason to stay longer. So I don't think that is the the actual reason behind the scene. There must be something. That's why the Prime Minister said, well, let's set up one special group to investigate what happened in order to prevent the repetition of that event in the future. Thank you very much.
In fact, you can ask two of us whether we like to stay on or quit.
No.
No, it's not to stay on because we like to quit. Also, quit meaning that when time comes, we certainly we're happy to. So don't be misled by whatever the politicians said, whatever circulated in the press that people in the cabinet wish to cling on to power, which is not true. Thank you. Please.
Thank you. My name is Sara Alhopro. I'm the Deputy Head of Mission for the Embassy of Finland. And my question is, in the current situation, any larger political gatherings are restricted. So would they be allowed again to ensure an inclusive debate on the new draft constitution before the next referendum? Thank you.
Could you repeat the question again?
Yes, because in the current situation, political gatherings of more than 5 people are restricted. So I would like to know whether they will be allowed again before the referendum to ensure an inclusive political debate on the new draft constitution. Thank you.
I will give you the answer first, and after the Minister may give you the additional answer. Well, we have enough time, 20 months. I do believe, I strongly believe, that one day in the near future, the government and the NCPO will reconsider or review any regulations affecting the individual rights of the people, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, in order to pave the way for the people to discuss politics, discuss about the draft constitution, prepare for the referendum. So it's time to return freedom and liberty to the people. But we still have time. Not this month, not next month. I believe that after the new constitutional drafting committee starts its work, probably about 50%, 60%, then the government authority concerned will reconsider this. Otherwise, democratic atmosphere cannot happen in Thailand, right?
I look at it a different way. I think despite this article or section 44, which is enforced at the moment, the freedom is there. Why I say this? Because there are a number of circles, which I happen to be in some of them, which discuss politics. My friends from high schools, which they are no longer high school age, but they discuss them openly when they gather. But they could do without disturbances from the authorities. My university friends also do the same thing. And I think this has been ongoing. The only problem which you might have is any gathering which then people show up to disturb, to heckles, to create problems. Then of course they will be invited up. Like the case or the event in Khon Kaen universities, which involved a number number of students. If you ask around all others, university in all other provinces, they don't have the same problem. They do discuss too. I don't think we really restrict Thai people, particularly students or people from different sections to not to engage in talks. They can do. Even the diplomats. On a certain given day, particularly last year, in the context of Human Rights Day, a number of diplomats show up in Khon Kaen, talking very freely to the people, and some of them even admonished the government, admonished directly the government that, hey, your government's not doing things right. They violate your human rights. You know, things of that have been, and we didn't take any action with the diplomats or anything. The people who joined in discussion. So people might be mistaken that this country has no freedom of expression. If you look also at all front pages, Thai or English, you will see everything is free. The headlines, editorial boards. If you even go back to the embassies and then you start collecting all this, the headlines and the editorial articles of all papers, and doing it for a month long, and you see that all the contents are full of free expression by the newspapers, by all the medias. We have done that. We tried. We see, and we see nothing wrong, and we see that all opinions have been voiced there. So, sorry, now I beg to be different a bit from my practices, but I see that the freedom is there, except those who have the intention to create confusion, problems, and all that, and that happened in the news. Other than that, things have been going on, without being noticed even. Thank you.
Mr. Deputy Prime Minister and Representative of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I am K.N. Adhikari, Ambassador of Nepal. First of all, I thank you very much for the very clear brief. I had the opportunity to attend similar brief before also. I know how clear you present. Therefore, we are asking questions, but still, since the briefing was so clear, perhaps we didn't get many questions to ask. We are talking about the constitution making process. As an ambassador of a country which is in the process of constitution making, Nepal, I know the difficulty of drafting a new constitution and getting it approved by the people. As you know, in Nepal also we had one constituent assembly elected in 2008. In 4 years' term, it could not draft. The political parties and leaders couldn't agree on a draft constitution. Again, we had to elect constituent assembly to the second constituent assembly. Now it is about to finish the job, and I am happy to share with you that Nepal's constituent assembly is going to set to prepare, finalize the draft, and Nepal's president, it has been officially announced that president will promulgate the new constitution this coming Sunday. This is a new news for me, and perhaps a good thing for us all to share also. But I want to just share my views how difficult it is to draft and promulgate a new constitution. Certainly, it was not a good news for Thailand also when the NRC rejected the draft constitution on 6th September. When just listening to your presentation, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, and also we have been given this paper, it seems, I understand that before the CDC was within the NRC. CDC was the part of NRC, and the CDC, when it drafted the constitution, it went to the National Reform Council, and they had the authority to accept or reject it. But this time, I sense, I don't know, This time, whatever it might be, Constitution, the National Reform Council or Steering Committee or Drafting Committee, whatever the name may be, it is a separate body, and the Constitution Drafting Committee is separate, and it doesn't belong, or it is not a part of the Reform Council or Assembly. Is it like that?
It's separate.
Thank you.
Separate.
But it is therefore that it doesn't have the Constitution doesn't have to go through the Assembly or Committee, Council, whatever it is. It is separate body now.
Separate.
Oh, thank you.
Do
Thank
not
you.
go to the assembly.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Excellency.
I think we are not planning to have dinner here. So let's call it a day, and thank you very much for joining us here.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Thank you very much, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Thailand. And on this note, we end the briefing session to allow Their Excellencies to proceed to their next engagement. Thank you very much, everyone, and until next time.
Shadow.